This video is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the camera performance, what you can expect out of that main 108 megapixel f1.75 aperture camera, which is the HM2 from Samsung, that sensor. Now we do have an 8 megapixel ultra wide and a 5 megapixel macro camera. The selfie camera on the Xiaomi 11T Pro here is a 16 megapixel one. So before I jump into our samples, let's take a look at the stock camera app and what we can do. I'll quickly run through this. So we've got our HDR mode. You can override this, you can turn it off, you can keep it on auto, which is what I do, and will for the samples I show you later on. AI mode, now I tend to keep that off. Now with the cameras, you can swap over. Right now it's the 108 megapixel with an f1.75 aperture. We can go over then to our 8 megapixel ultra wide, which is the weaker cameras of the 11T Pro here, and then digital zoom 2 times. So the shutter rate, it's really good, it's super quick. The ISP and the Snapdragon 888 handles that just fine. Then we have 5 times digital. Not a very good looking photo, and you can go all the way up to 10 times right here, which is unusable. That's just, no, it's an oil painting mode really. It does not look very good at all. So portrait mode, you can adjust the backgrounds if you want. They've got the cinematic effects. And over in the more here, you will find 108 megapixel mode. We do have a slow motion, dual video, time-lapse, clone, movie effects, vlog there too. So if I go into the video mode here now, so with the main camera we can shoot 4K 30, 4K 60, 8K 30 frames per second, which is 6K upscaled to 8K. And with the ultra wide, we only have 1080p. So over on the left, there is what they call here, you can see when I enable this, the steady video mode, all right? And then moving into the pro mode here, so this works for both the video and the camera. We've got our white balance, focus, shutter rate goes up to 30 seconds, ISO up to 6400. You can select which lens you want, so the wide, ultra wide, or our macro. 108 megapixel mode, of course, only works on the main sensor. And if you tap on the upper left here, we do have this, which is a few other settings, but most importantly, RAW mode is there. Now, anywhere where you are in the camera, you can tap and hold. It will lock the focus and lock the exposure, which is very handy, especially in the video modes. First up, video performance. This is our front-facing 16 megapixel camera. It has electronic image stabilization, but only 1080p max. Now you can shoot 1080p 30 or 1080p 60, which I'm currently doing right now. As I walk ahead, you can see the electronic image stabilization does a reasonably good job. Now in the sun, I notice that sometimes you get these fluctuations with the auto exposure, where you may see it kind of like pulse white for a couple of seconds. You notice this more if you are wearing like a white t-shirt like me at the moment. That can happen. Audio quality is good, and overall for 1080p footage at 60 frames per second, I do like what I'm seeing here, but I do hope that Xiaomi in the future with their flagships can add 4K 30 and 4K 60 with the front-facing cameras. And what about the quality indoors? Well, it's pretty good, not bad at all, as you can see here for 60 frames per second. Bit of echo coming through, of course. Rear video now, so we can shoot 4K 30, 4K 60, 8K. This has electronic image stabilization. You can see as I walk along, quite steady this footage. I do like the quality. And you are able to apply a little bit of digital zoom here, so that is now 2 times, which still looks okay. Anything over 2 starts to get a little pixelated and doesn't really look that good, so that is now 4 times digital zoom. In my books, that's not really usable. So pulling right back here, that is the furthest we can go back. It won't let us go over to the ultra wide. You need to stop and then press record in the ultra wide camera for it to work. Now there's a reason why that is, and that's because we can only shoot 1080p maximum with the ultra wide camera here on the 11T Pro, which is a shame. So there's no 4K ultra wide support. The electronic image stabilization here is good. Just a shame we do not have any optical image stabilization, and our audio bitrate is the 320 kilobits per second we are now seeing with their flagships and have for some time. This is now 4K 60 frames per second with electronic image stabilization. Going down my stairs here. Seems quite steady, but it does rock around a little bit. There is no optical image stabilization with the 11T Pro here. This is now a sample of 8K video. It does not have any electronic image stabilization, 30 frames per second, so it is actually really 6K upscaled to 8. That's how they're able to achieve that 30 frames per second. And now moving over to low light performance with these cameras with video. This is the front facing camera, of course, only 1080p maximum. Electronic image stabilization, it looks so much brighter than it really is. Like right now the sun has set, there's a lot of ambient lights around, but it still looks, yeah, a lot brighter than it really is. A little bit of noise coming through, of course, with these conditions. And now low light with our main camera, so this is the 108 megapixel sensor, and the electronic image stabilization not looking as good here as I walk along. Not too bad, considering that, yes, it is nighttime now, and there's a lot of ambient light around, which is definitely helping out with this quality, but you can see more shakes and jolts coming through with the video. And our ultra wide now, 1080p, that's all it can do in low light. It's definitely looking a little grainy, especially on the left side, right along the edges there, struggling now in these conditions. Okay, now to quickly recap, I think that the low light performance, considering the fact that this sensor does not have any optical image stabilization, they came out okay. They came out pretty good. They look a lot brighter than what it really was. Now the colors from the main sensor seem to be what I would call closer, truer to life, but oversaturated at times, especially when we had a look at that hibiscus red flower. So that one, way too punchy, oversaturated. I didn't have the AI mode on, I turned that off. In fact, it's off by default, and it clipped a few of those red colors there. Now the ultra wide camera is the weaker camera out of all of these 4 cameras we've got on the phone here, okay? And I noticed around the edges that it can look quite a bit blurry, and really I would have preferred that Xiaomi had gone with a 16 megapixel ultra wide or 13. And that way we also would have got, with this, is more than just 1080p recording on the ultra wide camera. So at the moment, we only have 1080p, and it's not going to change. So that's it. So there's no 4K with the ultra wide camera, sadly. Now the main footage for video on that 108 megapixel HM2, it looks good, but it certainly is not the best I have seen for video performance. There is a lot of panning judder that comes through, especially in low light. You can see some of those jolts and movements when you move about with the electronic image stabilization. I mean, it does do a good job, especially in bright light, it's a lot better. Now we have the 8K video too with this, but it's not a true 8K, okay? It's going from 6K resolution upscaled to 8, and that is how it is 30 frames per second, and that's why they call it and label it Xiaomi as 8K AI, and the AI is because they're artificially, well, scaling it up. I don't know if artificial intelligence is actually involved in that, not at all. It's just being scaled up right there. So all up, the portrait photos, I think they come out pretty good. Even the indoor ones in low light, that one of my daughter there, I still think reasonably good there. So there we go. Now you know the full story here with the cameras of the Xiaomi 11T Pro, but what about their whole phone in general? Well, that's where you need to check out my full review, where I go into the battery life, the build quality, the screen in detail, speakers, gaming performance, all of that's covered, including benchmarks. So make sure you do check out the full review that I have, which should be showing up here, and there is a link down in the description of this video, so do check that one out. Thank you so much for watching this 11T Pro camera review.